In Kadale village, Kenya, there was a girl named McKenna Wambui. People knew her as the daughter of Mzee Wambui and sister to Kamau, the family's pride. McKenna was quiet. She didn't chase attention or show off like others. Her heart was full of books and big dreams. While others cared about marriage or farming, McKenna had one wish: to open the village's first reading center for children, a place where young ones could learn and grow. She believed knowledge could change lives. But in Kadale, such dreams rarely came true. Life in the village was simple. Girls got married. Boys went to the city. People said, "A girl doesn't need big ideas. Her home is in the kitchen." McKenna heard those words many times, but she stayed silent, holding her dream close like a secret. Her family loved her, but they didn't see her the way they saw Kamau. Kamau was sent to good schools, wore clean shirts from the town, and people always said he would go far. McKenna didn't complain. Instead, she would sit under the big acacia tree, reading old school books she borrowed from neighbors. Sometimes, little children would gather around her, asking her to read stories. That made her happiest. Still, there was a quiet sadness in McKenna's heart. She knew her father valued Kamau more. In meetings with other elders, he spoke proudly of his son, rarely mentioning McKenna. Even though she said nothing, deep down, McKenna wondered if her dreams mattered to anyone else. People often whispered about her. "That Wambui girl, always with her books. Who will marry her?" But McKenna didn't care. Her eyes were always on a future she could almost see. A building with shelves of books, tables where children could sit and learn, a small cafe in the corner. Her vision was so clear, yet so far away. And as each day passed, her silent hope stayed alive, burning quietly inside her heart, even as the village went on with its old ways. At 22, McKenna's life was about to change. Her family had arranged her marriage to Odieno, a merchant from the next town. McKenna didn't choose him, but in her heart, she accepted it quietly, as was expected of her. Odieno's family sent a generous dowry: cows, goats, and 500,000 Kenyan shillings. It was the kind of dowry that made people in Kadale whisper in amazement. Everyone said McKenna was lucky, but deep inside, she felt nothing but calm acceptance. This was her path, and she would follow it with dignity. The wedding day was near, relatives gathered, and the village buzzed with talk about the big event. Then, on the night before the ceremony, McKenna's father called the family together. Everyone sat quietly as Mzee Wambui spoke slowly and firmly. "Odieno's family sent too much," he said. "It would be wasteful to use it all on just a wedding. Kamau needs money for university in Nairobi. We will use part of McKenna's dowry to pay for his fees." The room stayed silent, but McKenna felt something inside her break. Her dowry wasn't just a gift, it was her future, her security. And now it would be taken for Kamau. McKenna didn't cry or argue. She just lowered her eyes as her heart filled with heavy sadness. The next morning, everything changed. Odieno's family, hearing about the dowry being touched, felt insulted. They withdrew the proposal. The wedding was cancelled. No songs, no celebration. The cows and goats remained, but the village whispered. People spoke in low voices. McKenna's wedding didn't happen. Her dowry was given to her brother. McKenna became the girl without a wedding, the girl whose family valued her less. She walked through the village like a shadow, quiet, always with her head slightly down. But while the village saw only her silence, inside McKenna's heart, something new was growing. Not anger, but a quiet, burning strength, waiting for its time. Without asking McKenna, her family made the choice. Most of her dowry, the cows, the goats, and nearly all the money was handed to Kamau. Her wedding was cancelled without loud words, without public explanation. One day people were preparing for it, the next day it was simply off. Odieno's family felt deeply insulted. To them, it wasn't just about the money, it was about respect. They left Kadale quietly, taking their son with them, and never spoke of the marriage again. The news spread fast. In the village, everyone whispered. Women at the river, men sitting under trees, even small children repeated what they heard from their parents. McKenna's dowry was given to Kamau. Her family didn't care for her. Poor McKenna. People watched her with quiet eyes as she walked through the market or passed by the well. Some looked with pity. some with curiosity. But no one asked her how she felt. McKenna, once the girl with quiet dreams, now felt like a shadow of herself. Her head stayed low. Her steps were slow. She didn't read under the acacia tree anymore. The children who used to gather around her stayed away. She was now the girl without a dowry, the girl whose future had been taken and given to her brother. Her name wasn't spoken with hope anymore. It was spoken with sadness, as though her story had ended before it could even begin. But while everyone else saw only a quiet, broken girl, something very different was happening inside McKenna. Deep inside her heart, where no one could see, a storm was building. Not loud, not wild, quiet, steady, strong. It wasn't anger, but something sharper, a decision, a promise to herself that she would not stay in the shadow of others forever. That even without a dowry, without a wedding, without her family's support, she would find her own way. And this quiet storm inside her waited for the right moment to rise. One evening, as the sun was setting, McKenna sat alone by the river. It was her quiet place where she often went to think. The sky was orange and calm, but inside her heart, there was no peace. While sitting there, she heard voices not far behind her. It was Kamau and some of his friends. They didn't see her sitting near the tall grass. McKenna listened without meaning to. Kamau laughed loudly and said, "If not for my sister, I wouldn't be here. Her dowry paid my way." His words hit her like cold water. He spoke without shame, as if he was proud, as if it was nothing that her life had been pushed aside for his. His friends laughed too, making the moment even heavier in McKenna's chest. McKenna sat still for a moment, eyes fixed on the water. Her heart tightened. All the sadness she had carried until now turned into something else, something sharper, something clear. That moment was her breaking point. Without a word, she stood up, brushing dust from her skirt. Her hands shook, but her face was calm. She wiped her tears, not because she was sad anymore, but because she was done crying. Looking out across the river, McKenna spoke softly to herself, her voice steady. "I will make my own name, not as someone's daughter, not as someone's sister." Those words became a promise in her heart. She would no longer live in the shadow of others. Her family may have taken her dowry, but they hadn't taken her will. Her brother might brag, but he hadn't built anything on his own. From that moment, everything changed for McKenna. Her heart felt lighter, her steps firmer. She walked back to the village that evening with a new fire in her eyes. Nobody saw her differently yet, but deep inside, McKenna knew her life wouldn't end as the quiet girl who lost her dowry. Her story wasn't finished. It was only just beginning. Before the sun rose, while the village still slept, McKenna quietly left Kadale. She carried only a small bag and her mother's old phone. No one knew where she was going, and she didn't leave any note behind. Her heart was steady, her mind clear. She boarded a bus to Eldoret town, a place she had only heard about in stories. When she arrived, she had no job, no family, just a plan in her heart and determination in her steps. McKenna found work in a small cafe on the edge of town. At first, she washed dishes from morning to night. Her hands hurt, her feet ached, but she never complained. Day by day, she learned more. After some months, the cafe owner let her help in the kitchen. She learned to cook simple meals, serve tea, clean tables, and speak to customers. Every shilling she earned, she saved. No new clothes, no small treats. Just saving quietly and patiently. At night, when her shift ended, McKenna didn't rest like the others. She would go to a cybercafe and borrow phones from kind strangers. Using those phones, she watched videos and read about business, learning everything she could: how to open a cafe, how to manage money, how to buy books in bulk. For 3 years, this was her life: work hard, save money, learn in silence. Step by step, her plan grew stronger. McKenna never forgot her dream. Every coin she put away was for one purpose: to return to Kadale and build something no one there had seen before. A place where children could come to read, learn, and dream bigger than the village allowed. A cafe where people could gather, drink tea, and feel proud. It wasn't just about books or business. It was about showing everyone, including her own family, that she didn't need a dowry to make her life matter. She was building her own future with her own 2 hands. And when the time was right, McKenna would return home not as the quiet girl, but as someone new. After 3 long years of working and saving in Eldoret, McKenna was finally ready. Her savings had grown, and with advice from kind friends she met along the way, she took her biggest step yet. She went to the town office and officially registered her business name, Wombowi Learning Center and Cafe. Signing those papers felt like holding her dream in her own hands. It wasn't just an idea anymore, it was real. With her papers in hand, McKenna began buying everything she needed. She chose books in both English and Swahili for children of all ages. She bought wooden tables and chairs, enough to fill a small room. She even saved up for a coffee machine, knowing that a cafe would bring people in and help her business grow. McKenna didn't rush. She planned every little detail carefully. Each item she bought, she pictured it in the learning center back in Kadale. Her heart was full of quiet pride. This wasn't a gift from her family. It wasn't something given through dowry. Every coin, every book, every chair was something she earned herself. Then, on a bright morning, carrying her new things in a rented truck, McKenna returned to Kadale. As she stepped down from the vehicle, people stopped and stared. This wasn't the quiet, shadowed girl they remembered. McKenna stood tall, her head high. She wore smart clothes, sharper and cleaner than anything the village women wore. Her hair was neat, her shoes polished. Even her walk had changed. Villagers gathered, whispering among themselves. Children peeked from doorways. No one had expected McKenna to come back like this. Her father and Kamau both came forward, their faces full of surprise and confusion. But McKenna didn't explain herself. She simply smiled, calm and confident. In her eyes, there was no anger, no sadness, only strength. She wasn't there to beg or to remind them of the past. She had come back for something bigger, ready to build her dream with her own 2 hands, right in the village that once forgot her. When McKenna stepped back into Kadale, it was as if the whole village froze. People stopped whatever they were doing, staring at her with wide eyes. Was that really McKenna? The quiet girl they once pitied? The girl without a dowry? Now she walked with her head high, wearing smart clothes and carrying herself like someone important. Her voice was calm, but strong. No one had ever seen her like this before. Her father stepped forward slowly, unsure what to say. His face showed both surprise and worry. He hadn't expected his daughter to return like this. Kamau too had come back from Nairobi. His studies hadn't worked out, and he was struggling to find steady work. He stood there in old clothes, watching McKenna, not knowing what to expect. McKenna looked at everyone gathered and spoke clearly. I am opening Kadale's first learning center and cafe. All are welcome. Her words spread like wind through the crowd. A learning center? A cafe? In their small village? It was something no one had imagined before. Yet here she was, standing tall and confident, announcing her business with pride. The same villagers who once whispered about her now watched in silence. They remembered the girl whose wedding was cancelled, the one whose dowry had been taken. But now, she wasn't just someone's daughter or sister. McKenna stood as a businesswoman, her own person with her own name. Her voice didn't shake. Her hands didn't tremble. She didn't ask for help or approval. She simply said what she had come to do and waited. In that moment, Kadale saw McKenna in a new light. No longer the quiet girl left behind. She was now the woman who returned with power, bringing something new for everyone. Her journey had been silent, her struggle hidden, but the results stood right in front of them. Wombowi Learning Center and Cafe wasn't just her dream anymore. It was now real, and it belonged to the whole village. Word about McKenna's Learning Center and Cafe spread fast, and soon the village council called a meeting. The elders gathered under the big tree near the chief's house, where all important matters were discussed. Villagers came to watch, curious about what would happen next. McKenna stood before them calmly, wearing her sharp clothes and holding a file in her hand. Some elders looked at her with doubt in their eyes. One of them, old and serious, spoke up. "McKenna, how can a woman run such a thing? A cafe, a learning center? This is not what we are used to." The crowd murmured. Some agreed, others stayed quiet. But McKenna didn't lower her head or hesitate. She opened her file and took out her documents one by one. First, her business registration papers, stamped and signed from Eldoret. Then, her food license, her savings account details showing the money she had saved, all from her own work. Each paper she held up with steady hands, letting the elders see for themselves. "I built this with my own hands," McKenna said in a clear, strong voice. "Not with dowry, not with family gifts. Every coin I saved I earned myself, washing dishes, cooking food, learning business at night. No one gave me this. I worked for it." There was silence for a moment. The elders looked at each other. Even those who had doubted her could not ignore the facts. The papers were real. Her savings account was real. And her confidence was real too. One elder, known for being the strictest, nodded slowly. "If a person works hard and follows the right path," he said, "we must respect that, whether man or woman." The others followed, nodding one by one. The villagers, watching from the side, began to smile. In that moment, the questions stopped. McKenna wasn't just a young woman trying something new. She was now officially recognized by the village as a business owner. Her learning center and cafe had the elders' approval, and her name was now spoken with respect. After the learning center and cafe opened, people from Kadale and nearby villages came in every day. Children filled the reading tables, and adults enjoyed tea at the cafe. McKenna moved through it all with quiet pride, making sure everything ran smoothly. But in the middle of all the noise and success, one face stood quietly by the door: Kamau. He had returned from Nairobi with nothing in his pocket and no clear path ahead. His studies had ended badly, and now he stood watching his sister, who once had no dowry but now owned something the whole village respected. One evening, after the cafe had closed, Kamau came to McKenna. His voice was low, his eyes lowered. "McKenna," he said, "I need work. I can't find anything else. Please, let me help here." The boy who had once bragged about her dowry now stood asking for a job. For a long moment, McKenna said nothing. She remembered the pain, the family's choice to give her dowry to him. But then she took a slow breath and gave him her answer. "Not because you are my brother," McKenna said simply, "but because everyone deserves a second chance." Her words were calm, firm. It wasn't pity. It wasn't payback. It was just fairness. She gave Kamau the job of delivery man, handling cafe orders around the village. It wasn't a grand position, but it was honest work. From that day, Kamau carried tea and snacks across Kadale, riding a bicycle with the cafe's name painted on it. People watched quietly. The once favored son, the one everyone believed would rise highest, was now working under his sister's name. It was humbling, but it also taught Kamau something new. Step by step, he learned to respect the hard work that McKenna had done to reach where she was. In the end, it wasn't about pride or old mistakes anymore. It was about building something real together. And as Kamau delivered orders with quiet focus, the village saw both brother and sister in a new light, not as rivals, but as two people starting again. Years passed, and the Wamboi Learning Center and Cafe became more than just a small village spot. It grew into a place known even beyond Kadale. Children from far villages would walk for hours just to sit at the reading tables. They came with dusty feet and bright eyes, holding old notebooks and broken pencils, all hungry to learn. Some came for the cafe's warm tea and simple bread, but most came for the books. In a village where dreams often faded, McKenna's center gave them new ones. The walls filled with books, the sound of pages turning mixed with laughter and quiet talk. Teachers from nearby towns started volunteering, holding lessons under the big tree outside when the room was full. McKenna's name became known not just as someone's daughter or sister, but as a woman who changed things. People stopped introducing her as Mzee Wamboi's daughter. They said, "That's McKenna, the one who opened the center." Her story was told at weddings, at markets, in church. Mothers told their daughters, "Be strong like McKenna." Her quiet strength had left a mark. Even the elders, who once doubted her, now brought their grandchildren to learn. They would sit outside sipping tea, watching the younger ones read. Kamau still worked as her delivery man, but now he did it with pride. No one looked down on him anymore because everyone understood. Both brother and sister had found their place. McKenna never spoke much about the past. She didn't bring up the wedding that wasn't or the dowry that disappeared. Her focus stayed on growing the center, adding more books, bringing in better coffee machines, offering more jobs to young people from the village. One evening, as the sun set golden over Kadale, a small boy asked her, "Will this place always be here?" McKenna smiled gently and said, "As long as people want to learn, it will." And with those simple words, it was clear. McKenna's name, her work, her dream, they would live on, long after her voice grew quiet.